you don't want to be the guy that's not following the advice that's coming out of your own mouth. So like, you don't want to be a bullshitter. So if you really want to change people or like be a change, you need to like talk with your actions. Let your actions always lead the teaching. So that's what I focus on. I focus on just like leading with my actions, talking to yourself. I mean, it's like a bully in the head. It's like we all have a bully in our head that we let run the show too often. And it's like, no, not anymore, bro. How are you going to break the pattern, man? You got this bullshit operating system that you identify as it's not working. Right? It's like operating system. I'm going to make myself feel worse, and I'm not good enough, and I'm going to compare myself with everybody else. Operating system, click, and that's how we run our lives. It's like, no, fuck that. I'm taking that out, and I'm doing something about it.
My soul is breaking free. You awaken me, stolen my time to move on, but now I can see seizing destiny. Welcome to my evolution.
All right, man. Welcome to the dumbest guy in the room. My name is Bill. I'm your host. Today, I have a great guest, man. I'm really excited to hear his story. We kind of just started this and then it wasn't recording, so I had to jump back in. But today I got Nick Ferdinand. Hey, Nick, if you could, man, just tell me a little bit about yourself, man. You know you better than anybody else. So go ahead, man, introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just funny. This is the second time we're doing it, but no, I appreciate it, Bill. Appreciate the opportunity to come on here, tell my story, kind of tell everybody about my gym. I'm a new gym. I have a gym. It's called NF Sports Strength, located in Northeast Philadelphia, Croydon, PA. And a little quick background on me. Always aspired to be a pro athlete. Didn't really care if it was football or baseball. Went to Archbishop Ryan High School. That's kind of like where my path started, and put together some good years there. Got some looks for some D1 schools, some Division II schools in football, and ultimately went to Bloomsburg, and then transferred to the University of Delaware to play baseball, and then was fortunate enough to get drafted by the Phillies, which was awesome, hometown team, and spent 4 years playing pro ball, and that was always my initial dream as a kid growing up was I want to be a pro athlete. Didn't really think of anything past that, to be honest with you. I was kind of like all in on that, and going through that process of trying to, when my playing day was done, when I got released and I had to make a decision, do I want to keep playing? What do I do? That was a huge turning point for me. We all go through turning points. That was definitely mine. It was an identity change. I was always associated with being like, the baseball guy. Now I'm like no job guy, got nothing going on. So I had to kind of deal with that, and did some jobs, worked a sales job. Ultimately, didn't like it after a year, and then ended up pursuing this profession that I'm in now after some soul searching a little bit. And I realized that, it's okay to have multiple dreams. It's okay to just, if one dream doesn't work out, pivot, go on to the next one. And, you can either, for me, I can either spend a lot of time dwelling on the past or just kind of moving forward on a new dream. So it took me like 2 years to get to that point, to be honest with you, but finally got there. And long story short, moved up to Boston for a year to intern under a strength and conditioning coach and work at a gym for free. I had to work like side jobs in order to like kind of pay my way up there. Had to get creative, going on Facebook, asking for like friends. Hey, does anybody have a couch I can kind of crash on until I find the place? Did that for like a couple months, which was it really it forces you to kind of dig deep. And but it was cool. It was all a big adventure for me. I've always been adventurous, so I like that kind of stuff. And then when I ended up coming back home to the Philly area, I just said, screw it. I'm just going to go all in on this. So originally I was before COVID, I was renting space at a location in Huntington Valley. Like it was a baseball facility. And I was like in the corner. And then when COVID hit, it put everything to a stop. And it was kind of like a blessing in disguise because I wasn't so high on that spot because there was a lot of noise. There was like when I was training people, there was actually baseball lessons going on. So like little kids screaming, balls hitting the bats, the dings, all that. It was a very distracting environment. So when COVID happened, this was another opportunity for me to kind of go, okay, maybe how do I turn this not so good opportunity into something to my advantage? And I ended up getting out of that location, taking everything into my home garage and started running my business out of my home garage. And I did that for 2020, 2021, all the way up to last August. So a year from now when I found this location. And I've been here for almost a year now. And it's been a hell of a ride. But yeah, that's kind of like where I'm at now. And right now I specialize in preparing the high school athlete in all sports, football, baseball, basketball, soccer, male, female. My program works best for people who are motivated, for athletes who are motivated to get a scholarship or go play college sports, because the program that I do is a professional style program, and it's going to prepare them for anything they do in college. So it's almost like going to an SAT prep class, but now you're doing the prep class for the weight room that you're going to experience in college or at the pro level. So that's one population I work with, an athlete population. The other population I work with is just general population, adults in their 60s, adults in their 50s, adults in their 20s, late 20s, 30s. So yeah, I mean that's kind of like the short end of my story. But yeah, I mean we can. The second time around, that actually went better. So maybe the recording not going on was a blessing in disguise, my friend.
It is it is funny how that works, but at the same time, dude, I love the authenticity of a conversation. But this is the first time that this ever happened to me where I had to do it a second time. But dude, but since we're doing it a second time, the question I really think I want to know, because I know Eddie was a hockey player, goalie. He played for Ryan too, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ed?
Yeah.
I personally I dropped out of high school, dude. Like I was a terrible kid. I went down the wrong path quickly. But again, my dream was always from a little kid, I'm going to play professional sports. And you get in high school, you find alcohol, you find drugs, you find other things that people are paying attention to. And I went that route. But for most of my friends and most people I know, family, everybody, that was the goal. I'm going to play professionally with some sport. And most of us don't get there, right? It's a very small percentage. What can you just, especially since you got drafted to the Phillies, right? Like that's a team that we all wear the P on our hat. Like we have been representing them since very little kids. Can you describe that feeling when you seen that you were drafted to the Philadelphia Phillies, and like how long did it last, that feeling?
Yeah, I'll never forget it. It was I was so nervous because I got drafted in the 35th round. So there's 50 at that time in 2013. There was about 50 rounds, and I was slotted to get drafted between the 15th round and the 30th round. So like anywhere between there, like that's where I was projected to. So it could have been the 20s, could have been the early, like, so when in the draft, the rounds were going by, my name wasn't getting called. I was like freaking out. And the way that you found out was you'd go on the computer like this and you'd watch the live draft. It's not as sexy as the NFL, like the first 2 rounds where like you're physically going in because there's so many rounds. But so I was sitting at my computer like this, and I was like, you know what, screw this. I'm going out. I'm going to play. I played a round of golf, and I had it on my phone. So I was like playing around the golf, like freaking out, like maybe I'm not going to get drafted. You know, what do I do now? And then when I got the phone call, it was like it was such a buildup and anticipation of everything. It was just like a super like calming like climax, and it was like, all right, this is pretty cool, man. And now and it was a moment. It was like I gave myself a couple hours. I gave myself the rest of the round the golf to kind of appreciate what was happening. And then when I left, I was like, all right, I got to get to work. And you know, ultimately, I was like super motivated. It put a fire under me like no other. You know, not to get so heavy and deep and grim, but like this was the time when my dad was battling cancer. So that was kind of cool. So he got an opportunity to see me. He since passed away. He actually passed away the following year, which I think about it. You know, so I got drafted in June, and he passed away that December. So he got an opportunity to watch me play a couple of times, but I went into the off season dealing with that, and yeah, that affected me more than I thought it was. So, you know, because I always thought like, oh, I can't let nothing's gonna affect me. I'm gonna stay tunnel vision and blah blah blah. And but yeah, that kind of screwed me up a little bit. And I don't know, like if I was going through like a slump or something, he was someone I'd always call. But I didn't have that opportunity, and I don't know. I don't want to make any excuses for anything, but like that definitely was a challenge. That was definitely a challenge at that moment.
I'm sorry to hear that, brother. My old man passed away from pancreatic cancer, right? 2 years now. I don't even know, dude. It feels like yesterday. Yeah. But it's like I know that feeling, like of when something happens, good, bad, and different, not to have that phone call.
Yep.
Like my son I was telling you, my son loves baseball, and it was so weird because, you know, I know he passed away and things, but when my son would do something or have a game, my first instinct thought was, I gotta call my old man. And then it was like, damn, my old man's not there. And it was almost like the first time I realized that, like, we're not, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but like, you're not immortal. Like, this life does end. This life is short. This life, you know, we have to live it. And you have to live it every day. For some reason, man, that resonates with me just because I do feel like that was the life-changing moment for me where my mind started to change, was when my old man passed away.
Wow.
And dude, I don't know how you did it, honestly, with that type of pressure at that level. And being able to stay focused, I don't think is an excuse that you're making, brother, at all. I think it's something that, you know, until it happens to you, where you don't really understand it. It's not really an explainable thing.
Yeah. I mean, I was never really in touch with my feelings, you know, like,
Yeah.
You know, that was another thing. Like, so dealing with like that, like, was kind of, it was a unique experience because it was like, you know, like you don't know how to feel. It's like, do I cry? Like I need to be strong. So I don't know. The grieving process is tough, and that was definitely a new experience for me. And I definitely became a lot more empathetic towards others after that, which which not to say that I wasn't before, but it's real, man. It's like it's when it happens, when you experience things like that, it wakes you up. You kind of wake up in life.
Mm-hmm. And you were dealing with probably one of the highest your highest of highs that you've ever had.
Yeah.
And at the same time dealing with one of the lows, which can, that's got to be difficult to battle, especially if you haven't been in touch with your feelings. Because I don't know if you're like me or Eddie. Like Eddie, he has his story with drugs and sobriety, and same with me, man. I've been sober now. It's July, so exactly might even be 6 years on the day. To be honest with you, I'm 6 years sober this year, and that's from suppressing all of those feelings and not wanting to ever have to deal with them. And that's why I'm always big, and that's why I kind of feel like I probably went to the question of how did it feel when that happened to you? Because I think it's important that we can articulate the feeling behind things, because it helps us better kind of understand where we're going in life, right? So with that experience, do you think that experience has kind of helped you with the reason why you made this gym? And how do you use it with your students, like to try to help them out?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it definitely helped. Hindsight's 2020 at the time. Going through all those experiences, it makes me think about uncertainty. When you have like dealing with uncertainty, I think is one of the most challenging things to deal with in life, because no one teaches you about it. And we all cope in different ways how to deal with uncertainty. By the way, congratulations for being sober for 6 years. That's amazing. But yeah, we deal with uncertainty in different ways. And one of the silver linings of my dad going through his whole 4-year battle, it was very aggressive squamous cell carcinoma cancer. It was a skin cancer that basically like ate away at his face. Wasn't the prettiest of cancers, but it really motivated me to get into health and fitness, to be honest with you, because I was like doing my own research to learn about his case. So I was motivated to learn I was motivated because my dad was like dying. So it was like life or death type motivation. I'm going to read all the books. I'm going to learn all this, learn all the foundational things that I need to learn. And by the way, I can help myself out too. So that to answer your question, I mean, that's kind of like the path that led me down. And so when that moment happened where he finally did pass away, I mean, it was a challenge. I was still playing. I still ended up playing 3 more years, but it really woke me up in the sense of what you just talked about, which is like kind of looking at your feelings, looking at kind of like these other areas of your life that you never looked at before. Journaling, I got into like journaling. I got into like meditation. I got into reading. I got into basically any type of thing that was going to kind of get me to the truth. I became like a seeker of truth that I still kind of carry on to this day. And big into psychology too. It kind of motivated me to get into that life. So how I help my clients out, I like to do an exercise with them every once in a while. Like for example, if I have a high school kid who's unsure about their future, they're unsure about what they want to do, whether they want to go into college, or say they already have a college scholarship and they're like, hey, what major do I do? Because I've kind of been through this process of trying to seek out and kind of find out who I am through various books and hiring coaches and all that. I'll go through like an exercise on the whiteboard with them. It's from a book called What Color Is Your Parachute? It's basically like a book about finding a job, basically, but it's deeper than that. It's really about it's really about finding out what your interests are, what your strengths are, what comes most natural to you, and building your career around that. Versus you go on Indeed.com and you just look for a job opening, and you try to like put a square peg in a round hole. It's like, so I'll in more of a practical sense, that's what I'll do with some of my clients. That I've actually done that with them in the past, and it seems to work out. I mean, they like it. Whether they act on it is out of my control. I'm kind of motivated to just at least let them experience something like that, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, dude. And I think that when you say whether they act on it, it's kind of up to them. There obviously is a sense of responsibility that falls on the person that you're trying to mentor and help down the right path. But I also think, like, when I look back at my life, man, I might not necessarily take advice or do the things that I'm being told I should be doing right away, but something else will happen in my life, whether it's a day, a week, a year, 10 years down the line, where that moment will come back and be like, that's what they meant. Right. So it might not happen right away because you don't fully understand it yet. But I feel like just putting it out there in somebody's life could be life-changing 5 years from now. And they'll be like, that's what Nick was trying to get to me. I just wasn't ready to take it in yet. Whether or not even they can even pinpoint it to you. Right. Like, I think there's so many people that have impact on my life that I probably can't even go back and say that they did it, but they did. And I'll never really know that. We just did one with our buddy, Mike Gennell. And he brings up that, when he got sober, it was when he was sitting in jail. And one of our other friends came to his mind and was like, if that dude could do it, I could do it. And the other guy has no idea that ever took place. So like, our actions and the things that we do are physically actually doing, whether or not we think it's helping people, they are, and sometimes we don't really understand that the impact of what we're doing is really important for other people to actually see. But the one thing that you brought up earlier when you opened up was identity, right? And finding your identity and trying to figure out who Nick is, right? And you became a professional ball player. You were on the Phillies. You were playing in the minors for, I think you said 4 years, and then it ended. And, I know that feeling, but from a different financial standpoint, from a different point. And I was in the financial world. I was in banking, started out in a call center, made it up to, and got all my licenses to sell investments. Got my own branch. So I was a licensed branch manager, and it came to an end abruptly. And it was like, I defined who Bill was now, because this isn't what I got there. I had that feeling of, man, this is always what I wanted. But then a week goes by and you're like, why don't I have that feeling of that I thought I was going to have when I got here? Right. So the same happened for you. And the ultimate, if I look back and say that would be like my ultimate goal back when I was a kid. And then it comes crashing down. It's like, now what? So how did you, I know you said you got into psychology and things like that, but how did you re-find your identity? Was it something external, or was it the inside stuff that you're like, who is Nick? Where do I, who is Nick?
Yeah. Yeah, there seems to be a little internet delay here.
I can still hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Okay, you're good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I mean, it's a loaded question because there's so much to unpack in that. I don't know if there was just one point or one moment, and I think that's always the movie thing, right? It's like, there's always a movie scene where it's like, here's the epiphany. So, I watched a lot of movies growing up, so I always tend to think like my life's a movie, and like there's always gonna be a moment like that, and then I realize like, life's not a movie, But I don't know, man. Like, all I can tell you is that, like, for the most part, we make I've made a lot of decisions based off of who I identify with. So if I'm like Nick, the pro baseball player, I'm going to act, talk, think like that guy. So, kind of be mindful about who you want to identify with, So, kind of going down the path of truth in a sense, just through reading books and stuff, and probably reading books that I probably normally wouldn't read, like self-development books, learning about people's stories. Reading's a game changer, I think. I think that was probably the moment where I started to kind of feel like I can shape my identity the way I wanted it to. It was kind of reading about it. Reading's a game changer. I was never into reading. I felt like I never had the attention span. I never really saw the value in it until one day I started to read, and I was like, holy shit, like some man or woman spent 4 or 5 years writing and crystallizing their thoughts, and then there was a whole team of editors that came in and edited and parsed out and teased out what was important, what wasn't important, kind of trimmed the fat, and kind of came up with this super clear idea about a book, about a topic. So like that was kind of like, whoa, that sold me on reading, and then ultimately starting to take recommendations from people when they said, oh, you got to read this book, not just saying yes, shaking my head, and then fucking procrastinating on it, like actually doing it. Probably from the age of like 25, 20, 24, 23 to like 28, there was a lot of Friday nights and Saturday nights I spent at like Barnes and Nobles, just like self-educating, like, because I was kind of over like the whole, how many times can you go out and party? It was fun. And, but I wanted more. I wanted something a little bit. I wanted to learn more. I had a curiosity that needed to be that needed to be like, there was a thirst for it that I needed to figure out. But yeah, I'm kind of getting off topic here. But yeah, that was, I would say that, and something I always remind myself of is when you can get in line with what you're thinking, what you're saying, and what you're doing, when that's all in alignment, that's how you create like a self, like confidence. Like that's how you create confidence in yourself. That's how you create good energy, and you're not bullshitting yourself because you're thinking you're somebody, you're talking about that, but you're fucking doing it, and it like creates like a truth. It creates like a groundedness in you that's unshakable. And I feel like that's probably like your higher, if you're talking about like your higher self or whatever, like that's probably a good place to operate from.
I love that, dude. I never really heard it put in those terms of aligning those three things, and it is so true. And I think one of the where I always battle, or when you hear people talking about that before you're actually doing it, or if you're in a bad mindset when you're trying to learn these things, is you also think that when people are talking about that that's happening for them 24/7, that like that's their new life. And I don't know about you, but for me, it's not all the time that I'm doing that. It's just, that's where I'm aiming. And I get to experience that a lot more when I'm aiming for that. And I still have, the downside. I still have my days where I'm not, fully mentally there, fully physically there. And it's difficult to kind of be there all the time. And I don't know if it's possible, dude, but I strive for it being possible, like that I could be like that all the time. And I love that you bring up reading, because that's actually one of my segments of my podcast is we do a book review. and I'll pick a book, and then Eddie will pick a book. My boy Mike will pick a book. I just got somebody else, involved. He picks a book, and then we talk about the book, or we try to get the author of the book on to, really see where he was coming from with the book. And I think that was a game changer for me too. Like, dude, I dropped out of high school, so reading to me, I read Holes. Like, that was the book I read in school, and then from there I was like, I don't need this crap. I know everything. And then kind of recognizing that, and that's where the name of my podcast came from, The Dumbest Guy in the Room. It's like, I want to talk to everybody like they can teach me something. Like, I'm listening to everybody that I hear talk, like they know something that I need to know, and I try to do that, whether or not I, disagree with everything that they said. It's like, I need to come away with something. There's something that you're talking about that I need to know. So what is it? Yeah. And that changed my life, dude. Like, getting that. And I feel like at a young age, I could think about some of the people I listened to, and no matter their expertise or where I thought they were in life, I still, for some reason, thought I knew better. So what I'm saying for you as a coach, as taking on these young guys and trying to mentor them, are they receptive? Do you think that they're receptive of that concept of trying to put their mind, body, and everything kind of aligned? Or do you think is it difficult still to get, younger guys to actually understand that concept?
Yeah. No, it's compliance is always a challenge in this field, meaning we give out recommendation. Are they going to follow it or not? But compliance is challenging for every human, regardless of the age. Ultimately, from my experience and the best coaches that I've been around, and the continuing education that I've done, humans are mimicking machines. Like, we're programmed to mimic. And ultimately, we follow, people learn differently. Some people are kinesthetic learners, like meaning they feel in their body. I tell you to do something. I say, hey, do a squat. You just got to feel it. Like, you got to close your eyes and feel it. Some people are auditory. You can just tell them and they won't even look at you. They're like, all right, I got it. I don't need to hear anymore. Some people are visual. Most people, if you really want to solidify it all, they do all three. So it's like visual, auditorial, and they got to feel it. So I try to do that, add those principles in, but that's just like human behavioral stuff. And then also, just you don't want to be the guy that's not following the advice that's coming out of your own mouth. So, like, you don't want to be a bullshitter. So if you really want to change people, or like be a change, you need to like talk with your actions. Let your actions always lead the teaching. So that's what I focus on. I focus on just like leading with my actions, really, and not trying to be overly preachy. I've done that in the past. A couple years ago, I noticed when I was like doing too much talking, and then I realized, like, ultimately, if the person's if whoever is, save your breath. Just let people like watch your actions, know that you're not a bullshitter, and then if they want to follow and make a decision, they want to take your advice, they're going to take your advice and do it. And then if they have a question, they'll follow up and ask you. So ultimately, that's my approach. Because I years ago, like in my 20s, I'm 32 now. I was learning all this shit. I'm like, dude, I got all this stuff. I got to like throw it out on people, because I'm excited about it. But no one wanted to hear it. They're not ready to hear it. So
I was the same way. I was very preachy, but and let me ask you this, because this is what I think when I look back at that. I don't necessarily think it was a bad thing at the time, but I do think that what I was actually doing was preaching to myself. When I was over talking, I was kind of telling myself what I needed to be doing, because I was taking in so much. It was like this light started going off. I was taking in more information, and I was like, oh man. And it was like something went off where everything I learned in my past was now like, look, this is what it is you need to do. And then I would over talk and I was over preachy and I was saying things that you need to do and whatever, but I wasn't really doing all of it yet. So to me, I was overly preachy because I was really talking to myself. Would you say that you were kind of in that same thing, or was it a little different for you?
No, 100%. Ultimately, I feel like there's a moment in our life where you realize you're not the center of the universe. I think that when I hear your story and some of the when you share some of your what was kind of going through your head at a young age, I can relate to, because it's like you're used to being, you want to be the center of attention. You're the center of the universe. Thanks for the advice, guy or teacher, but I'm going to do it better. I don't need your, blah, blah, blah. I'll do it myself. That's independence. That's autonomy. That's power. That's, I can do it. I don't need your help. That's like a fire, which is all good and ambition. But I think there's still like a strong ego that I've seen in myself, where I'm like, I'm the center of the universe and everything revolves around me. And then at some point, I don't know when it was, I realized that I'm not. We always think we're more special than we are. Like, we think we're so special and unique, and we're not. I mean, at least that's how I think about it now. And it's actually super relieving, to be honest with you, because you put all this pressure on yourself thinking that you're so special, or like you're the center of it all. And it's like, oh shit, no one's going to remember me in 50 years.
Yeah.
Why am I? But I think once you kind of get over that, then like a whole world opens in front of you, because dude, now you're not the guy you don't give a shit. You don't give a shit.
Yeah. And it's crazy, dude. Like, I remember doing things, especially towards the end of my, drinking binges, and even a little after that. If I would make a mistake, if I would do something incredibly stupid, I wasn't really mad at myself for doing that thing. I was always thinking that everybody was thinking about the thing I did. And it's like, no, dude, no one gives a shit about you. Like, you're laying here depressed because you think everybody's talking about you. Yeah. And it's like, nah, dude, they're going on with their life. And you're sitting here thinking everybody is thinking about you all the time. Like, how narcissistic do you have to be to think that the thing you did is what people are talking about 24/7? Like, you're the only one thinking that, dude. I don't know. It is funny you say that, because that's literally how my mind was.
Yeah, man. I think that's people go through their whole lives and live like that, and that'll be their operating system for the rest of their lives. And the fact that you obviously went through that trial. I mean, we all go through our own trials and stuff. Actually, when I was 25, I intentionally took a year of sobriety, and it was fucking hard. Like, going out to bars and shit, like this was when I was still in the minors. So like, I was like going out to bars, like sometimes partying with like the other guy, like, and I was like sober. I just wanted to do it. I wanted to just challenge myself. And what I realized is how much my behavior was linked around having alcohol as a buffer, or as that liquid courage or something, or like that lubricant, which it kind of is. But like, if you just kind of train yourself to get through that uncomfortable feeling, there's so much freedom behind that. So it's like, I mean, I don't know what I was going with that, but like, I can relate to a little bit of kind of the narcissistic stuff and all that.
Yeah, none of us like to think that that's who we are. Like, we won't acknowledge that side of us. I feel like, for me at least, like, I always thought I was a good person, and I was not. And I would not want to acknowledge the other side of me. And you said you're into psychology and stuff. I get into psychology. I get into a lot of philosophy. And Carl Jung is a philosopher, and he talks about the shadow. And it's like these people we don't really want to recognize our shadow, but we'll see the shadow in everybody else. So we'll see all our bad, all the things that we see as flawed as us in other people. So we kind of mirror, we won't recognize the bad in us. We want to see it in the guy in other people. So we'll always point it out. And when I realized that, man, it was game changing because, you know, I would treat women like shit. I was cheating constantly. I would do anything to like benefit myself, but somehow I always justified my actions as being a good person, some crazy way. And when I was able to kind of recognize that stuff, I was able to get better. And what I mean by get better is I mean mentally and emotionally. But the one thing that's new to me, man, is why I love talking to like you and guys like Pat Bryan, is the physical side, you know, the actual how that actually has a big contribution to my mental health and vice versa. And it all does go together, which is why I think the biggest thing you said today for me was aligning all of that and making sure that you're actually doing, saying, and actually doing it. Because I started probably right around when I talked to Pat on this, was a carnivore diet. And I was eating strictly meat. And I did it strong for about 2.5 months. I lost a lot of weight. I started running. I started going to jujitsu. And I started to do, I just seen myself, and Pat brought up a good thing that I never really talked to him afterwards, was changing little habits in my life. And little habits lead to bigger, you know, when you look back, like you said, when you do change little habits and you look back, you're like, damn, that's where I was 6 months ago. And you don't really feel that much because you're just changing little things. And those were the little things for me. It was changing my eating habits, changing my physical, what am I doing physically to better myself? And now that I'm talking with you about, you know, actually doing and seeing the changes, I see it in my kids, you know, like from me actually doing it rather than just talking to my kids about things. I see it. You can see a difference in your kids. So when you say that you do, right, and I see your post all on Facebook, and that's how I kind of got introduced and wanted to talk to you, because you're so positive in everything that you talk about, and you post videos of you actually doing things, and it's very inspiring, just to say the least.
Appreciate that.
It is, man. It really is, and I love stories like yours. I do, because some people can look at it and say he had no struggle. And that used to be who I was. You know, you see somebody doing good and you're like, well, they never had to deal with shit. And I don't think, because like you said earlier about Facebook and how it's negative, how it could be negative and positive. I say the same thing about my kids. Dude, we go to take a picture somewhere, and my kids are crying, and then you're screaming at them to smile. And now you got this happy picture, right? It's a picture. It looks happy. But it's not what was going on at the time. You know, like everybody was freaking out. Nobody wanted to take a picture. And that's what you see on Facebook, right? You don't see the struggle. So when you were, let me take it here, dude. When you're going from college to going to the draft, what was that like? Like, how did you get from the point of knowing you were going to be drafted, and what did you have to do in between that, dude? Like, what did you physically have to do? That's like, I don't know, man. It just blows my mind as for somebody that grew up next door to me, and that whole life to me was not realistic. Everyone I knew was doing drugs and drinking, and then there was guys like you that were about to get drafted into, you know, the MLB.
Yeah, I mean, my dad had a big impact on me growing up. He like burned it into my head, like, you are an average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. Like, he said that to me all the time. And to the point where I was like, I would have like anxiety about people I'd hang out with. To be honest, but it's you know, I'll never forget it to this day. Like, there was a lot of times where like I was like, I'm not going there. It's like, you know, first of all, like I'm not any different than anybody else. Like, I love the party. You know, left to our own vices, like we're gonna go. We're human. We're gonna fall into the trap. We're gonna fall into the pleasures. So kind of just building context, that's kind of been my attitude, even at a young age, was being very mindful of who you surround yourself with. And basically, like, you're a product of your environment. So transitioning from college to the pro level really wasn't that big of a transition because, a lot of the things that I was doing were working. And, in terms of like training physically, I just stayed with my routine and train at the gym. The training for me and working out has always been a foundational, positive domino habit for me. It's always given me a structure. I went through periods of time where I didn't work out, and I went through periods of time where I did work out, and then I took a step back and went, oh, my life's a lot better when I have a structured workout program where I'm 3 days a week, 4 days a week for 12 weeks, and I schedule things around that, and I operate my life outside of that. So now that's something that you kind of can see as a pattern in my life. That's like my personal success formula, and building your life around that. So I think it's freezing again.
It's a good picture of you too.
Is it? Well, as long as you can still hear me.
I can still hear you.
Yeah.
All right, cool. But yeah, so I identified that kind of after college. Like, I was like, I need to keep working out. I got to keep training because it puts me in a good mind state. You like yourself better when you're moving around. When you're exercising, getting blood flowing, you're doing hard things. The voice in your head is a little bit more positive. You don't feel like a slob. So that's ultimately, I think, why I exercise, and like that was like my training regimen. I would run hill sprints. I still do. Like, I'll still run hill sprints in the wintertime and stuff, and do weight training stuff because I like that mode you get into. I like that voice that comes out. It's like that voice is like a very motivating voice.
It is, man. That voice. I wish if I could go. I hate when I say if I could go back, but that's one thing that nobody, literally, I don't think anybody has ever mentioned to me before, was that voice in my head. What is it? Who is it? Yeah. And what's it telling me to do? And why? Because it was so negative for me. Right. So I think I battle with that all the time. Is my inner voice is so negative and it's so down on me all the time. And that's one thing I tell my kid all the time. Be like, me and him we went running the other day, and we just started, and he's like, I'm tired. I'm like, dude, we just started. You're 7 years old. If I could do it, you could do it. I said, who's telling you you're tired? He's like, I'm telling me I'm tired. I said, no, where are you hearing that from? Is that something in your head? And he's like, I think so. Something's telling me I need to stop. And I said, it's lying to you. Don't listen to that. You're better than that. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he looked at me like, you know that's happening? And I'm like, yes, I know it's happening. Because it's just I feel like sometimes, like, where do thoughts come from? I think that was like one of my big things. Where is that voice coming from? So, like, for you, you said it gets more positive. Mm-hmm. For me, it's more of a silencing. When I can silence that, which reading has helped me with it, exercising has helped me with it. So I don't know if it's ever gotten positive for me yet, but I know it's been silenced, and that's when I'm the happiest, when it's kind of not there.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got fed up with listening, like listening to the voice. And something that I started to do a couple of years ago is like, I'm talking to myself now.
Yep.
Period.
We're
So
probably
it's
all
like,
going to get committed to a hospital for talking about the voice.
yeah, but yo, like, you need to talk to yourself, because how are you going to break the pattern, man? You got this bullshit operating system that you identify as it's not working, right? It's like operating system. I'm going to make myself feel worse, and I'm not good enough, and I'm going to compare myself with everybody else. Operating system, click, and that's how we run our lives. It's like, no, fuck that. I'm taking that out, and I'm doing something about it. And you know, talking to yourself. I mean, it's like a bully in the head. It's like we all have a bully in our head that we let run the show too often. And it's like, no, not anymore, bro. This game's over. And then when you
Yeah.
start to exercise, you start to stand up to that bully in a sense, and that gives you your own voice. That gives you that voice in your head to kind of have courage and strength. And that's why exercise for me is like, it's just a non-negotiable, because it's you say you're somebody, you say you want to be this person, this is what you got to do, and it's a daily practice. That's what kind of fires me up.
Yeah, dude. And that's why I got into jujitsu, and that's why I fell in love with it almost immediately. It's one of the only times that I'm fully present, right? So it's almost like when I meditate, because I do meditate, and when I meditate, it's more, I'm still by myself, I'm still dealing with myself, but there's nothing to stop other things coming from my head, right? Which is good for the talking to myself. But when I'm doing jujitsu, I'm able to basically get rid of all of that, because I'm also in a sense of, I'm in full control of myself. I don't have control of what they're going to do, only what I'm going to do. And I'm fully present. I'm not worried about tomorrow. I'm not worried about yesterday. I'm like just fully present. And I'm also getting a workout in at the same time, which is what made me fall in love with it. And it just helps me with that battle, dude. It really does. But you also mentioned your old man told you you're an average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
I think that's an awesome. That's like that is awesome that lived with you forever, dude. And, for that reason and everything else your dad ever taught you, your dad lives forever through you, and then through everybody that you're kind of teaching, which is where I get that, we do live forever if we're making an impact on other people, because that statement came from him. And
That's beautiful, man. I haven't thought about it that way.
It's the truth, and that's an awesome thing, bro. That's going to stick with me, because I love that statement. And I do understand the concept of you being the people you surround yourself with. I love that concept, but you are the average of them.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. And learning that from a young age got to be pretty important. And not that you understood it back then, but you had an idea. And I'm sure you understand that concept way more now than then. But let me ask you this: did your parents like struggle throughout life, or like did they have their battles? And because I feel like my parents, they definitely struggled, but they were more of like, everything's okay from the outside. So like never really showed that they struggled. And I feel like it kind of didn't hurt me, but it didn't better me. And I feel like I learned a lot from it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it all happened for a reason. But for somebody to say things like that, I feel like have to come from either somewhere of struggle or their parents or somewhere that they actually found themselves.
Yeah.
Do you think, how was your childhood? Like, was that like that?
Yeah. In my dad's case, he grew up basically like poverty level stuff. Like, he had like five siblings. They like were always like traveling around they moved like 3 or 4 times in his youth. And Italian family, it was loving, but money was always a problem. And athletics was their solution to kind of get out. So like, they, at a young age, they tried to get scholarships, and they did actually. They got to a point where they got my dad and my uncle were like a year apart. Both got basketball scholarships and kind of made their own way and eventually started a business together and kind of built like a pretty successful business and lived a pretty good life. You know, that's how I was raised. I was raised kind of growing up in a household where, you know, my dad was kind of like my dad at a young age exposed me to like Tony Robbins, you know, because he was into it. Like he was like, I want to be a better like I want to be a better business guy. I want to not perfect by any means, but like those concepts. My mom's the, you know, salt of the earth. She's a nurse her whole life. Sweet Polish woman. The nicest human being that I know. Like she's the type of person that she's having a bad day, you'll never know it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
like my mom.
Yeah, like you meet people like that. Like if I'm having a bad day, someone's probably fine. Like I'll either say it in my tone of voice or, you know. So I always try to emulate my mom in that manner. But yeah, I mean, you know, they provided me with roof over my head, good ethics, like strong Catholic upbringing type deal. And we had dinner as a family up until about ninth grade. That was really important to my dad and my mom, and that was that still sticks with me to this day. Like I think family dinners are like non-negotiable. I think like because I find it very valuable even now when like I have dinners with my mom or my brother, or even my friends. Like it's just a great time, and that's, you know, it's kind of not a normal thing nowadays, which is kind of a shame. But yeah,
That's true, man. That's true. I have 3 kids. I'm married. Eddie, he has a son, and he's married as well. And I think it's harder. I don't like to say it's harder. I think it's harder today for us to actually eat dinner as a family because of all the distractions. And it's so much easier to cook and everybody kind of goes their own way, especially the bigger your family gets. However, we do, like, my wife makes it a point that we eat dinner together at least twice a week, that we're sitting down and eating. And I think the biggest thing from it is the conversation. Like forcing my son to share, like not really forcing, but like just teaching him how to have a conversation about his day and talk about his feelings without spazzing out, without doing things that you normally would do and be able to escape in a video game or escape on the TV. You know, but I think it is important too, man. And you're right. Not many people do. Like, Ed, how many do you have family dinners? Like, do you guys?
Yeah, so like my wife's kind of the same way. Like she kind of makes it a point. Like sometimes like I'll try and go and sit on the couch and like watch TV and eat my meal, and she's like, "You're not gonna sit at the dinner table." Like her and the baby are sitting at the table, so like I'll come over and like we'll sit, like have dinner together and talk and like ask like how our day was going and stuff like that. I mean, some days it's like my wife's a nurse like your mother, and so like she works just 12-hour shifts. So, like some days, like those days, like we don't get to have family dinner. So like I think it is important to have that bond. Put, like Nick, you said, like put your phone away, put it like somewhere another room, and sit there and have a conversation and look at each other and talk. I want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your stories. It's definitely relatable, like Bill said. I played hockey for a long time, through like grade school, high school. Never went to college. So like, but like that inner voice, like, so like when I was younger, I played for like 2 ice hockey teams, a roller hockey team. I was on the ice 8 times a week, and during the off season I would go to goalie camps and stuff like that. And that like in when I went to like those camps and like do like training off on the off season, is when I learned like some of those tools that you were talking about. And the inner voice, if it was trying to like tell you, like they'll say like, oh, you like I'm tired, and like my goalie coach would be like, don't listen to that voice, and like push through. It's like humans are unbelievable, and sometimes we forget like how much we can actually do if we push ourselves and what we're actually capable of. Like people undershoot what they think they're able to do, and they don't get to the point of like, I guess like ultimate satisfaction because they never pushed through that wall. They got knocked that wall down because there's so much more on the other side. And like if you can, or if you're able to talk yourself into it and keep pushing and get through that, and you use that, like you said, like in your everyday life, not just like in like the weight room, but you also use it in school, in business, and like you're able to apply that aspect into your life. Like it's definitely an asset you can use.
It's so hard though, man, because that wall, I feel like that wall shows up all the time, no matter what.
Have you ever seen the movie Miracle? Like I think it was the Winter Olympics, the USA team against like Russia, and like when they're training before the actual Olympics, and he's making them do like suicides like up and down the ice, and like they shut the lights off, and then he's like again, and like he's trying to do that for them because like they're exhausted, but he knows what they're capable of. They don't see it in themselves, but he can see it in them, and he kept pushing them, and then like at the end like of that like scene, like the one dude like gets back up, like they're all like collapsing on the ice because they're exhausted, and the one dude like gets up and like gets to the line, like he's ready for another one because now he knows he can do it.
Yeah, but it's the truth, man. And I think Nick brought tons of great points to it, dude. And I love the family aspect, brother.
Yeah,
like that you wrap that kind of all of it into to being family oriented. And I'm assuming you don't, you said you're eating dinner and something. I'm assuming you don't have any kids or anything yet, or
no kids. I got 3 nephews.
Yeah, which is better because you get to give them back after you're
right.
after you're done.
Yeah.
But dude, my son changed my life. It wasn't like for you to be at this point in your life and to have these tools is amazing, because it wasn't until my son was born that I was able to start looking at the part I was playing in my life, right? Like I didn't want to take responsibility, and then you have another life that you're responsible for, but you got no choice. You have to start doing that and looking inside and starting to do these things that you're talking about. And it's crazy because they sound so simple, right? When you talk about them, it sounds so fucking simple, but for some reason we don't. It's like something has to happen for you to start really implementing these things in your life. And talking to somebody like you, Nick, and it's funny because I know when I messaged you and I was like, hey, you want to call my podcast? I know your name. And it's crazy because I don't know who said it or what, but I remember somebody coming up to me and being like, yo, dude that went to Ryan just got drafted to the Phillies, and it was you. That's how I know your name. And it's funny how many people seen that name, and how many times did that happen across Northeast Philadelphia when that happened, that you just are you have no idea that your name was just talked about for, against hundreds or thousands of people at the same time. And you don't really realize that dude was like my neighbor, man. Like, he went to Ryan. He probably was in the classroom next to me. But instead, I looked at it as I was with these other 5 people, the average of those 5 people. And if I would have just, maybe it didn't matter where I was at or it mattered what I was doing and what I was focused on. And I could have been that same guy. And just for kids out there that might be listening to this, or a young guy might be listening to this, like, you don't have to be sitting with the kids you're sitting with, man. If that's not the life you want, you can just move to that next classroom and do something different and not have to just go through the same things I did. You know, like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do those things. It's not what gets you noticed. It's not. I just think it's crazy, dude. Like, literally, you were probably in a classroom over from me. Never would have known you because you're like, I'm not messing around with whatever the fuck that dude's doing.
I mean, it's cool. It's like stop and smell the roses and appreciate all that. You know, but something that you're bringing up, you know, it's cool to hear your story too, Ed, about hockey, because I know it's not, you know, you basically dedicate all your social time to this sport.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You know, but dude, we're story creating machines. Like, all we do is create stories in our head. And we have more control over that than we may think. And, you know, and this is something I've learned from, I think it was like Tony Robbins, maybe. Like, if you want to start to rewrite your story, first thing you want to do is to elevate your energy. So start moving. And that's where exercise comes in, man. And can you hear me? I think we're freezing.
Okay.
Now, yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you get okay.
All right. You know, I listened to the podcast that you sent me with Pat, and it was a great podcast. He's a good dude. I learned a lot from him because when I was done playing, I actually reached out to Pat, and he kind of offered me some different opportunities and suggestions on where I can take my fitness career. You know, so he was a great resource for me. So anytime I can, you know, help out him again, pay it back, I always try to do it. But anyway, you know, one of the things that has been very helpful for me is like rewriting the story about yourself. And you know, Pat brought up a great point about compounding small habits. Like, the change starts like right now. It starts like this second. There is no more time to wait. Like, if you want to rewrite the story, you got to physically do something about it. Because remember that alignment thing we were talking about?
Mm.
Right, you're telling yourself this story. Man, I'm inspired by this person's story in this life, and I want to do something like that. And then you start talking about it, but you're not doing anything about it. So now the story is your bullshitter. So it's like, no, I'm inspired. I want to take action. I'm talking about it. I'm going to do something right now. And in terms of habit formation and getting it done, undercommit. Too many of us want to overcommit to these big, extravagant, sexy habits. We want to meditate every day, and journal, and work out 6 days a week, and do cardio, and, you know, blah blah blah, and do all these things, and my life's going to be completely different. Like, dude, undercommit. Look at it from a year-long process. You know, it's July right now. When it's December, you want to be able to look back and go, holy shit, I worked out once a week for 52 weeks. Like, that's cooler to look at than you sprinted for a couple weeks, you fell off, and all that. So, you know, undercommit and keep that in mind about, you know, the story, man. And the way we kind of create that story is by doing something about it. So, yeah, this is those are like powerful things that I say to myself all the time. And you know, I think that's cool that you guys do a book club too. I'm actually in a book club myself.
Yeah, so I do this one on here that we do together online, and we post it. And then I'm in another one when I moved down to South Carolina. It's a Christian book club, and I'm the only like non-identifying Christian in the club, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I align with all the values and everything, but I just don't like to identify as a Christian just for the sole purpose of identifying with that group ideology. I feel like could sometimes be negative because, one, you know, if I call myself X, then anybody that looks at Christians sees something already. You know what I mean? They don't look and see Bill McDowell. They see that. And it's like, well, I'm not all of that. That's just a little bit of me, you know? So I that's how I got into reading, dude. Honestly, was I picked up, who got me into reading was Jordan Peterson. Do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
Mhm. Yeah.
So Jordan Peterson, dude, I had to do a work trip and I was driving home from Maine and I was like, I can't listen to the radio anymore. I can't do podcasts. So I stopped at this bookstore. I was like, let me see if they have an audio book. And they only had one audio book and it was 12 Rules for Life from Jordan Peterson. And that ride home, dude, changed my life in so many ways that like,
Yeah.
it's insane, dude. Never heard of the dude before. It was just the only audio book that they had. But he has one of his rules to life was, you know, it wasn't it was aim lower, right? Like you're kind of saying with set smaller goals. It was aim lower. Sometimes we have this big goal in mind and we're trying to make these extravagant changes.
Yeah.
And his was just aim a little lower every time. If you fail, aim lower. If you fail, aim lower. And it started out with me making my bed. And that's how I started changing these habits. It was literally something as stupid as making my bed. But now every day, dude, I accomplished something. My bed looks good. So if something goes completely wrong, I'm still coming back home to this thing that I did before anything could go wrong. But it's crazy how life works like that, dude. Like literally, like that book changed my life and I had no idea who he was, nothing. And that's how I got into reading.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, dude, he's a beast. He's a guy that's done the work his whole entire career, and you know he's an overnight success. But he's doing the work for 40 years.
Yeah,
and that's amazing, man.
He scares me now, though, dude. I'm going to be honest. You know, because I don't think he's an exception to his own rules, right? Like I don't, and he just joined like the Daily Wire with like Ben Shapiro and stuff, and now he's like constantly pushing material out. And for some reason, I'm just like, I don't know. Like now I feel like instead of him trying to help people, he's almost trying to tell his own followers that if they don't act, they're going to be victims themselves, which I feel like is kind of what he was trying to help people with before. But I could be wrong, dude. I don't know. His new stuff coming out seems from an angry place and not from a place of helping people.
Yeah. I could see that a little bit in, maybe pushing it or inauthentic in some areas.
Yeah. Like really trying to force these things or saying things that I don't really want to hear from Jordan Peterson. I want that deep stuff from Jordan Peterson. I don't want him talking about the girl in Sports Illustrated. There's 1,000 other guys that are going to say that about the girl in Sports Illustrated. I don't need to hear it from Jordan Peterson. But look, man, it's been about an hour, dude. I know you have a long day and stuff, dude. What else do you have anything else you want to share? Any other things you want to, talk about?
No, man, I just appreciate the opportunity, and this was a really good experience for me, and you highlighted some things that I haven't really thought about in a while. Mainly the looking at what my dad has kind of brought with me, and like he's kind of living forever. That's always been something that I've been struggling with over the last couple of years, is keeping his presence in mind. That kind of hit home for me. So I appreciate you, sharing that. And I mean, you guys seem like you guys are cool dudes. You guys are seekers of truth. It was a pleasure meeting you guys. So I appreciate it. And if anybody's interested in learning more about what I do or my gym, you can find me on my website, coachnickferd.com. My gym is located in Croydon. It's 290 Bristol Pike, Croydon, PA. I always offer 6 free classes just to see if we're a good fit. If a lot of people get intimidated by the gym setting. Sometimes there's for whatever reason. But I always like to offer 6 free classes, so there's no pressure. And by that time, usually you'll figure out whether you want to train with me and be part of this environment or not. But I do online training as well. But yeah, I mean, if anybody has any questions, I'm always I'm always helping out. Always willing to help out with people who are serious. Hit me up on Instagram at coachnickferd.com or at coachnickferd, and then if you want to email me, it's nick@coachnickferd.com. So, I appreciate the opportunity, man.
Dude, I appreciate you coming on, man. I got some really good. I learned a lot, man. I do, and it's the whole goal of this, man. I'm glad you had a good time. That's kind of my goal. I just want to have conversations, and I learned a lot, man. Like I said, I'll have all your stuff posted on the video too. I'll have links in the bio so that people can directly, just click the link to contact you if they do want to reach out. I would highly recommend it. Just from following you on Facebook, I can obviously tell you're a good inspiration, especially on from what I could see the younger guys, which is really cool. Because I do just one little tidbit. Like I've thought about this concept, not at your level, but from a younger standpoint, because I don't feel like I'm the best to train kids, but I coach my kids. I coach my kids' baseball team. I've coached his basketball team. I'm about to coach his football team. And I love it. Like it's the one time where I'm in love with what I'm doing. And it's not even from the standpoint, because I wouldn't know how to do it from your level, right? Like that's not where I'm at, but just the younger guys. So like that is a goal of mine to one day be able to try to implement something like that in my life, where I'm helping younger guys try to overcome that voice in their head. So I was really excited to talk to you, man. I'm glad you did. I appreciate not really worrying too much about the first half hour that we had that we kind of did this and went the wrong way there. But again, man, thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And I hope to have you on again sometime, dude.
Absolutely. Just let me know. I'm always down. You guys are cool.
Will do, man. You're the man, dude, and keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good night.
See ya. Yep. Nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you too, man.
Yeah.
You better run like hell. Stuck in the flames of my soul. And when I'm out of my cell, you better pray for help.